Elon Musk's SpaceX is targeting a 12 June IPO at a staggering $1.75 trillion valuation. To put that into perspective, that's more than Alphabet, Amazon, or Meta when they went public. But is SpaceX overvalued, or is it the investment opportunity of a lifetime? I've spent hours digging through the IPO documents, so you don't have to. Today, we're breaking down the actual business numbers, the bull case for some big investors, and the warning signs that the detractors don't want you to ignore. Let's go. So SpaceX is actually made up of 3 business segments. Let's start with the most obvious part of the business, launching rockets. But despite popular opinion, this is actually SpaceX's second largest business segment. We'll get to the number 1 spot in a moment. But in the launching rocket space, SpaceX has built a real competitive advantage. And for 2025, it launched 80% of all mass into orbit. How? By completely changing the economics of space travel. They've slashed launch costs by 92%, from $18,000 per kilogram down to $1,400 per kilogram. And a lot of their revenue is locked in from large government contracts by taking astronauts and cargo to space stations, as well as some other commercial satellites, which we'll get into. In 2025, this segment made up about 20% of SpaceX's overall revenue at around $4 billion. However, it did make a loss of about $600 million. And the Falcon 9 rocket has been one of the biggest successes for SpaceX. Jeff Bezos recently did some testing on his rockets. Let's take a look.
Oh no. Oh.
And he also had this to say about SpaceX.
Where you guys are compared to where they are, and what does your own trajectory look like?
Well, they have the Falcon 9,
right,
the smaller vehicle that they fly, not Starship. Mm-hmm. Falcon 9 is the most successful launch vehicle ever created. And
so SpaceX has a massive competitive advantage in this business segment, although it is really capital intensive and it hasn't yet produced sustained profits. The next business segment is where all the profit is made, and this is referred to as connectivity in the S1 documents, which is SpaceX's Starlink. Satellites in low Earth orbit shooting internet connectivity down to Earth. Connectivity is the Snow White of SpaceX, which I'll get into a little later on. As well as internet, they also have mobile phone plans, and overall they have about 10 million subscribers, and that number has been doubling over the past few years. And this is the business revenue driver of SpaceX. From 2025, about $11 billion in revenue and $4 million in profit. So it's very highly profitable. And without a doubt, this is the darling of the SpaceX business. They use their rockets to launch these satellites up into space. And with only 10 million subscribers, this business segment has a lot of room for growth and expansion. And the cost to launch these satellites are capitalized and depreciated over a number of years in the connectivity profit and loss statement. This is not too abnormal. They're simply matching the costs with the revenue, and under a subscription model, you would generally generate revenue from your customers over a number of years. And again, this business segment has a massive competitive advantage, with very few competitors offering a similar level of internet connectivity in those remote places of the world. The last segment includes X, formerly known as Twitter. Let's push that to the side for the moment. But this is the AI segment, which includes Grok and also the compute and data infrastructure to train their Grok AI model. And this segment is the cash drag of the business. It made a $6 billion loss in 2025 and made up over 60% of the total capital expenditure of SpaceX, which was largely attributable to building data centers and compute infrastructure. Many investors believe that Elon has combined his more competitive businesses, such as rockets and connectivity, with AI, and will use the money from this IPO to fund his AI business. And we like to think that SpaceX is a space business, but it actually might be more appropriate to think of it as an AI business. And what he wants to eventually do is build data centers out in space and harness the energy of the sun. Very capital intensive. At this stage, it'd be hard to say that Grok has any sort of competitive advantage against other AI models like Anthropic's Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT. And the best analogy I came across to explain this whole arrangement came from best-selling author Professor Scott Galloway.
But the way I would describe right now SpaceX is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and that is Snow White is ridiculously hot. The SpaceX is an incredible company. It's got incredible moats. It's growing, about 30% a year, 16 billion in revenues, 8 billion in operating profits, an incredibly robust company. Probably the biggest moats, I think, of any business in the world, 90% launch capacity, 2/3 of low Earth satellites. But what he's done is he said, okay, if you want to marry Snow White, you've got to take these seven dwarves that are just dysfunctional and awful people and expensive and add no value.
Now let's talk about the valuation. At $1.75 trillion, it's very expensive. And this valuation is more than McDonald's, American Express, and Disney combined. Now, if you think that's too expensive, it's not worth your investment right now, it might be out of your control, as SpaceX is being fast-tracked to be included in the NASDAQ 100 ETF. And this ETF is really the largest 100 United States companies that are non-financial companies, but it's typically, this NASDAQ 100 is dominated by tech companies. Now, normally for newly listed companies, there's a waiting period before you get admitted into an index. But for SpaceX, due to the size of this thing, it's been fast-tracked. So even if you don't buy SpaceX directly, if you indirectly invest in ETFs that track large indexes, they have no choice but to buy SpaceX if they track an index like the NASDAQ 100. And for people's retirement accounts and superannuation accounts, if these buy and track large indexes, they may automatically have to buy SpaceX. So indirectly, we may all be participating in the SpaceX IPO. Check out this clip from More Perfect Union.
Like everything, the price of a stock is based on supply and demand. How do you increase the price? 1. Artificial scarcity. Most IPOs offer 15 to 20% of their shares to the public. SpaceX, less than 5.
2. Of those shares, retail investors get 30%, or up to 3 times the normal allocation. Remember, Main Street over Wall Street.
Combined, a bunch of demand and a small supply. That means a higher than normal price. 3. 15 trading days after the IPO, SpaceX enters the NASDAQ 100. Any index fund tracking the NASDAQ 100 now has to buy SpaceX.
You have this wall of money coming from index funds that it has to buy no matter what the price.
Turbocharging the price. Step 4, let early investors cash out.
And for an opposing view, check out these comments from tech billionaire Chamath.
And you would say, well, why can you buy a company like this on revenue versus earnings and cash flow? And I think the reason is because what the revenue does is it gives him the operating leverage to go and invest in all of these other businesses that ultimately consolidate his differentiation and his competitive moat. Because what he creates is a capital moat that then accelerates a technology moat that then accelerates an execution and a learning moat. And now you have this incredible corpus of physical capability, movement of all kinds, X, Y, and Z, right? That thing will look very cheap, I think, in a few years.
So if you invest in SpaceX, what are you actually investing in? So Starlink is the Snow White of the business. Good subscriber numbers, growing revenue, really profitable business. For XAI, we know AI more generally is going to be part of all our futures. We just don't know how big a part it's going to be. And will Grok be the winner compared to these other AI models? It's a little bit of an unknown in this XAI segment. And for rockets, it does generate revenue from its government contracts, but some of the other possible future applications, which I found in the S1 document, which SpaceX have said that they want to make life multiplanetary. They want to harness energy from the sun. They want to build data centers in space. And they also want to promote space tourism, cargo transport to the moon. Now, all these things are not yet proven technologies. So if you invest in SpaceX, what you're doing is investing in those ideas. And really, you're investing in Elon. And there is one really important sentence that I found in the S1 documents that I want to share with you guys. And it says, as a result, the timeline for certain of our initiatives involving unproven or new innovations, including our goal of deploying 100 gigawatts of annual compute power to orbit, the establishment of a lunar economy and interplanetary industrialization, and the launch cadence required to achieve these goals may be difficult or impossible to determine. Our growth strategy may take longer to execute than anticipated, and you may not realize a return on your investment within the time frame you anticipate, or at all. That's a really important sentence. So what are my thoughts? I've not yet decided if I'm going to invest directly into SpaceX. It seems like we're all going to invest indirectly. I haven't made that decision yet. Call me a bit of an Elon fanboy, but as I was reading through the S1 documents, I got really excited about the mission and about what he's trying to achieve. So the mission of SpaceX is to build the systems and technologies necessary to make life multiplanetary, to understand the true nature of the universe, and to extend the light of consciousness to the stars. That really excited me when I read that. That is much more exciting and a mission that I feel like I can get behind rather than the standard company rhetoric of, we're going to raise, increase EBIT by 2% this quarter. Boring. I like that Elon Musk is so bold in his mission, that he's so bold in his goals, and he just goes for it. That really excites me, but I am a bit of a glass half full kind of guy, and hey, maybe I'm a sucker. But Nate, make no mistake, if you choose to invest in SpaceX, you're investing in their ideas. They're not yet profitable. It's unclear when they're going to become profitable. You're investing in the ideas presented in this document. So progress with caution. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below if you think you're going to be investing in the SpaceX IPO. And please keep in mind, I'm not a licensed financial advisor. Nothing in this video should be taken to be a buy recommendation. This video is purely for education and entertainment purposes. See you in the next one.